London is a living, breathing beast of a city, a creature of brick and soot that never stops shedding its skin. But for me, time didn't just slow down. It fossilized. It hardened into amber on a rain-slick Tuesday in 1965, and I have been trapped inside that golden, suffocating moment ever since. I remember when I looked at the city through the eyes of a young architect, drunk on ambition. I saw London in its curves, the grand, sweeping Baroque arches and the sturdy, soot-stained Victorian facades. Back then, the air smelled of coal smoke and possibility. I was 24, and I didn't want to build the functional, brutalist blocks that were then springing up like concrete weeds across the bomb sites of the Blitz. I wanted to build cathedrals of light. I wanted to design structures where the sun didn't just enter, it performed. And then I met Leaner. She was the light I had been trying to draft into my blueprints. We met under the dripping eaves of a bookshop on Charing Cross Road, a place that smelled of decaying paper and wet wool. She was wearing a red trench coat that screamed against the drab, charcoal sky, holding a rain-spotted copy of Keats. We spent our first hour together arguing about the aesthetics of St. Pancras Station. She called it a fairy tale castle for locomotives, and I, with the arrogance of a young man who thought he knew everything, called it Gothic excess. By the third hour, I knew I would never design a building as beautiful as the way she tucked her hair behind her ear. Our love was written in the geography of a lost London. We knew the city not by its maps, but by its moods. We knew which alleyways in Chelsea held the scent of jasmine in June, and which benches along the Thames offered the best view of the fog rolling in like a ghostly tide. We spent the summer of 1966 lying on the long grass of the Cotswolds, where the honey-colored stone houses seemed to grow out of the earth itself. I promised her, during a sunset that turned the sky into a bruised purple, that I would build our home there. It won't be grand, I told her, but it will have a library with shelves that reach the ceiling for you, and a drafting room for me, where the morning sun will hit the vellum at the perfect angle. She laughed, her eyes blue like the reflection of the rural sky, and said she didn't need walls, just a space where our echoes could live together. We were young, and we were certain that time was something we owned. We didn't know that time is a creditor that eventually comes to collect. Then came October 1967. It brought a bone-deep chill and a terrifying silence. I arrived at the station, our station, King's Cross, at exactly 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. The train from her parents' home in the north pulled into the station. The steam hissed. The iron doors clattered open, and a sea of gray-coated commuters poured onto the platform. I stood by the iron pillar of Platform 9, my heart doing that nervous, rhythmic dance it always did. She wasn't on the train. I waited for the next one, and the one after that. I stayed until the station grew quiet and the porters began to sweep the floors. The following morning, I went to her apartment. The door was locked. The milk bottles on the step were beginning to turn. By the end of the week, the landlord told me she had simply moved on. No forwarding address. No letters. Just a void where a person used to be. The years that followed were a frantic journey through the stages of denial. I spent the entirety of the 1970s pacing the streets until my shoes wore thin, screaming her name into the wind that whipped off the river. I went to the police, but in 1967, a grown woman moving on was not a crime. It was a lifestyle choice. I searched every face in every crowd. I became an expert in identifying the backs of heads, convinced that the next flash of red hair or the next swing of a trench coat would be her. But London is a master of hiding things. It had swallowed her whole. As the decades bled into one another, I stood from my office window and watched the London of my youth be dismantled brick by brick. The 80s arrived with a jagged, neon energy, full of lights and pragmatism. I saw the vibrant, messy docks of the East End where a leaner and I had watched goods from across the globe being unloaded turn into the sterile, gated glass towers of Canary Wharf. I became a senior partner at my firm, designing the very buildings I used to despise. I built skyscrapers that looked like shards of ice, cold and unyielding, reflecting a sky that no longer seemed to hold any secrets. The world changed around me with a dizzying, frantic pace. I watched the iconic red telephone boxes turn into rusted relics, and eventually, into curiosities for tourists. They were replaced by invisible, humming waves of digital data. I saw people stop writing letters. I saw the post offices close. I saw the birth of the smartphone, a device that seemed designed to ensure that no one would ever have to experience the holy agony of waiting ever again. I refused to join them. My loneliness is not a void. It is a complex architectural structure. Over 50 years, I have become the architect of my own solitude. I have built a cathedral inside my mind where every pillar is a memory and every stained glass window is a snapshot of her. I know the exact weight of her hand on my forearm. I can recite the 3 freckles on her left shoulder as if they were stars in a constellation. Every afternoon, at exactly 4 o'clock, I brew 2 cups of Earl Grey tea. I place hers on the small oak table, the one with the ring stain from her favorite mug, and I wait. I sit in the silence and let the steam rise, imagining the conversation we would be having about the state of the world. I tell her about the shard, that great glass splinter piercing the clouds, and how she would have hated it for its arrogance. I tell her how people don't look at the sky anymore because they are too busy looking at their palms. I have seen 3 monarchs take the throne. I have seen the city survive bombings, recessions, and the slow death of community. I see the young people today, swiping for love as if they were browsing a catalog of disposable parts. They have no patience for the ache of waiting. They don't know that the waiting is where the love lives. They don't know the holy tension of standing on a platform, heart hammering against ribs, watching the steam of a train announce the arrival of your entire universe. To adopt their technology, to buy a smartphone or a laptop, would be an act of betrayal. If I connected to their world, I would lose the thread that connects me to hers. As long as I remained in the London of 1965, Elena remained a possibility. If I stepped into the 21st century, she would finally become a ghost. Now, I am an old man, and my bones feel like they are made of the same crumbling limestone as the old London walls. My eyes are failing, clouded by cataracts that turn the world into a soft, impressionist blur. But my vision of 1965 has never been clearer. The world thinks I am waiting for death. They see me sitting at King's Cross, on the bench by platform 9, and they see a tragic figure. But I am not waiting to die. I am waiting for the beginning. I still carry the pocket watch I broke on the day we said goodbye. The hands have been frozen at 4 o'clock for a lifetime. But sometimes, in the quiet of the station, I feel a vibration in my vest pocket. A heartbeat, tick, 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 day after day, as the modern, sleek Eurostars scream past. I close my eyes and listen for a different sound. I listen for the heavy, rhythmic chug of a steam engine. I smell the sharp, nostalgic scent of coal smoke. I realize now that Elena didn't leave me. She just moved to a different room in the house of time. And I have spent 50 years walking down the hallway to find the door. Yesterday, a young girl sat next to me. She was crying over something on her phone. I wanted to tell her that nothing on that screen could ever compare to the weight of a handwritten letter pressed against the chest. I wanted to tell her that time is a lie, and that love is the only thing that actually occupies space. But I remained silent. I am the architect of silence now. As the sun sets over the modern London skyline, casting long, bruised shadows of purple and orange over the city of glass, I feel a strange lightness. The fog is coming in the real London fog, thick and smelling of history. And through the mist of the station, I see a flash of red. A coat. A girl with a book of Keats, standing by a train that hasn't run in half a century. The station grows quiet. The commuters, the digital screens, the frantic noise of the 21st century, it all dissolves like salt in water. The watch in my pocket, the one that hasn't ticked since 1965, suddenly shudders with life. The train is finally here. And for the first time in 60 years, I am not the architect of a void. I am simply a man walking through a door I spent a lifetime drafting. I am not waiting for the end. I am going to meet the person who was waiting for me in the spaces between the walls. I stand up, brushing the dust of a lifetime off my old coat, and I step toward the light.